It's kind of wild when you think about it. How can one single name come to define an entire century? How can it stand for industry, freedom, rebellion, and some really tough contradictions all at the same time? Well, today we're diving into a name that did just that. It's a story that starts not with an engine, but with an idea. And that idea really kicks off with a cultural explosion. So picture this. It's 1965. America is changing big time. A whole new generation, the baby boomers, are coming of age. They've got jobs, they've got ambition, and man, they want something that's just theirs.
And wow, in just a few years, that little spark became an absolute wildfire. Suddenly, it wasn't just a car anymore. Nope, it was a symbol of raw performance, a star on the big screen, and an icon that just perfectly captured the imagination of a generation that was hungry for speed and for style.
And the legend just kept growing. It reinvented itself over and over, tapping into that nostalgia, but always pushing forward. It was proof that a truly great idea doesn't just fade out, it evolves. All the way to today, where it's taken on this radical new form, sparking a whole new debate about what it even means to be a Mustang. Of course, we are talking about the Ford Mustang. But here's the thing. To really, truly understand the icon, you have to understand the architect who built the entire empire. Okay, so let's get into it. Back in the mid-60s, Ford saw this huge opportunity. The youth market was just booming, and these young buyers wanted a car that was sporty, stylish, and, this is the key part, affordable. What they came up with wasn't just a new model, it was a total phenomenon. And the response? It was just staggering. Ford's own marketing team thought, hey, maybe we'll sell 100,000 of these in the first year. They got 22,000 orders on day one. They blew past that 100,000 mark in 3 months and sold 1 million cars in just a year and a half. This wasn't a success. It was a complete redefinition of the market. So, the competition, they were caught completely flat-footed. They tried to belittle it, calling it a pony car, to make it sound small and less serious than their big, expensive muscle cars. But the joke was on them. The nickname stuck, and Ford and its millions of fans were like, yeah, it's a pony car. And just like that, a whole new category of automobile was born. The rest of the industry was basically in panic mode, scrambling to catch up. Plymouth, for instance, was so sure about their new Barracuda that one of their execs went and made this super bold, very public claim, which of course begs the question, where is the Barracuda today? Exactly. It's a footnote. This shows you just how massive the Mustang's impact was right from the jump. But it also makes you wonder, where did this radical idea of a cool, accessible car for the people even come from in the first place? Well, for that, we have to go to the man himself, Henry Ford. Now, this guy was a brilliant, self-taught engineer who genuinely believed he could build a better world. But he was also, let's just say, a deeply complex and, frankly, a very controversial figure. And you just can't tell his story without facing these profound contradictions head-on. This was a visionary who wanted to put the world on wheels, but he also used his own newspaper to publish hateful anti-Semitic articles. He pioneered the revolutionary $5 a day wage, yet his work was openly admired by Adolf Hitler, who literally kept a portrait of Ford in his office. It's a legacy that you have to look at, warts and all. So, setting aside the controversy for just a moment, let's focus on his core mission, because it was deceptively simple. Make a car so affordable that the very people building it could actually go out and buy it. And he pulled this off with 2 absolutely game-changing ideas. First up, the moving assembly line. Now, Ford didn't invent it, but he's the one who perfected it for something as complex as a car. By breaking down the whole process into 84 distinct, simple steps, he didn't just make things faster, he completely re-engineered the nature of industrial work itself. And the sheer scale of the efficiency gain here is just, it's hard to wrap your head around. We're talking about taking over 12 hours to build one car chassis and slashing that all the way down to an hour and a half. That isn't an improvement, it's a complete transformation of what was economically possible. His second big idea was just as radical. In 1914, he more than doubled the average factory wage to $5 a day. His competitors, the other industrialists, they thought he had completely lost his mind. But here's the genius of it. This wasn't about charity, not at all. It was a brilliant business move. It immediately solved his problem with workers constantly quitting, and it attracted the best talent in Detroit. But even more important,
It helped create a stable middle class that could suddenly afford the very cars they were building. He was literally creating his own customers. So this whole production philosophy gave us the Model T, which was really a masterpiece of simple, utilitarian design for the masses. And his focus was on absolute, total uniformity to maximize that efficiency. It's all captured perfectly in his famous quote about the Model T's color options, or, the lack thereof. Black paint just happened to dry the fastest, so every single car was black. End of story.
But then, decades later, the Mustang comes along and takes his core idea of a car for the masses and just completely flips it on its head. The whole paradigm shifted from uniformity to mass customization. You didn't just buy a Mustang, you built your Mustang. It was all about personal expression, the total opposite of the one-size-fits-all Model T.
All right, let's fast forward to today, because Ford is now facing its biggest challenge since the Model T itself, pivoting to an all-electric world. And this transition is testing the very foundation of the company.
And their strategy is a massive gamble. I mean, in huge markets like Europe, Ford is killing off cars that have been bestsellers for decades, like the Focus and the Fiesta, to go all in on EVs like the Mustang Mach-E and other profitable imports. It's a real bet the company kind of move. But here's the fundamental tension they're dealing with. Even as they push super hard into electric, the company's financial stability, the thing that keeps the lights on, still relies heavily on old-school gas-powered trucks like the F-150. EVs are the future, but gasoline is paying today's bills, and that forces some really tough decisions. And get this, in a move that tells you everything you need to know, Ford is actually pausing production of its flagship electric truck, the F-150 Lightning, specifically so they can build more of their gas-powered cash cow. That one move just perfectly highlights the immense pressure and the complexity of making this historic shift. And so this brings us to the final, really crucial question. Henry Ford's legacy is one of brilliant innovation, but also deeply troubling ideologies. To survive the 21st century, what parts of that revolutionary and contradictory legacy does the company need to keep, and what parts must it finally leave behind?